My purpose today is hopefully in just about 10 minutes to kind of walk through this. Ideally, some, if not most of you, have already viewed that video, and so you have a little bit of a sense as to the types of things that the Foundation thinks about when we talk about entrepreneurship and self-employment. And we provide this information really just as a context for you, so that you, as you're moving into the course development process or moving into the classroom teaching self-employment concepts, have a sense as to what the Foundation is looking for. So we use a kind of a definition that was honed by our board and the Chairman Emeritus of the Foundation, John Hughes. Our definition of entrepreneurship is very specific, and it's specific kind of in a world of very broad understandings of what entrepreneurship is. What the Foundation believes entrepreneurship is self-employment through business ownership, which has significant elements of risk, control, and reward. So that's the definition we use. You'll see that that definition, embraces certain concepts. It also tends to discourage, certain other types of thinking and other definitions. So what we'll do in the next few minutes is just walk through a few elements that help to unpack what that definition means. And again, we're kind of talking about a context to think about with respect to entrepreneurship. We're not trying to define every element of entrepreneurship itself. So think of this as kind of a picture of entrepreneurship from the Foundation standpoint, with the full understanding that a greater richness needs to be painted to make it relevant in your discipline, and that's really your charge. That's where you bring your perspective, help shape what happens in your classroom. So entrepreneurship, as I mentioned, is a big concept. It's very popular and growing on campuses, at four-year universities, at community colleges, and secondary school programs, and it tends to mean a lot of different things. So what we've used is this image of a bullseye to really help characterize what we think is in the center of that target, the things that we're really shooting for. So entrepreneurship, broadly stated, includes a variety of different things. Many of those things are important and worthy and will get a lot of attention, but are not perhaps the things that the Foundation wants all of us to focus on. The things that we believe you should be really concentrating on are the things that are right in the center there. And we'll walk through each of these 6 elements. But number one, that there are specific skills and competencies that can be taught and can be learned with respect to self-employment. That experiential learning is really critical and essential to delivering those concepts, those skills, and those competencies. That there should be pathways that lead students through the formal education system in a seamless way so that they can continue to grow in their process of gaining entrepreneurship education. As you saw in the definition, that entrepreneurship is really business creation, for-profit enterprises. Practitioners need to be involved in the education process. So it's very important that we engage those practitioners from our communities, bring them into the classroom, find opportunities for students to engage with them. And then at the bedrock of this program is the belief that entrepreneurship is relevant across the campus. So it's not just a business department activity, it's something that's relevant in each of the places where you work. And we, through the Fellows Program, have a broad number of disciplines represented. You're probably seeing that just in the room that you're sitting in today, looking around at your colleagues who are in different departments. Now take that times 20, and you'll see across the participating programs there's a great breadth of disciplines involved here today. So we'll just take a minute on each of these elements and kind of talk through them. So again, the bullseye concepts, these are the 6, that entrepreneurship is really relating to enterprise creation. It's not creativity or innovation. It's things that are in a vacuum. It's not those things. It's only when those lead to business creation. There is a process of identifying, teaching, learning, and practicing skills. Practitioners are essential to be part of that conversation. And the entrepreneurship education opportunity extends beyond the business school through a pathway that connects educational systems. And then we'll talk a little bit about this concept of focusing on really the practical and not the mythical, the real entrepreneur who is in your community, as opposed to the mythical grand entrepreneur who may be a model for certain folks, but may not be the best model for most individuals. So on the first one, entrepreneurship is not general business education. It's different from that. It's not solely creativity or innovation. It goes beyond that, although it may incorporate it. But it really must lead to venture creation. So for-profit venture creation is at the core of what the Coleman Fellows program is built upon. It's also really geared towards new organizations, but not necessarily the high-growth, high-talent organizations that a lot of people think about when they think about self-employment. We're really interested in mainstream businesses, the ones that are going to be made naturally be small employers that may not be the entities that are going to turn into large corporations, but they'll be bedrock elements of your communities that help to anchor the community together. Social entrepreneurship is getting very popular. It has grown tremendously. I'm sure you've seen elements of that on your campus. I'm sure you've seen a great amount of student interest. We think that is exciting and to be acknowledged. However, this program does not focus on social entrepreneurship in many respects because the definition is very unclear. It's very uncertain what we mean when we talk about social entrepreneurs. And while many others are working in that space, we reserve this program's activities for a different space, which is around the for-profit venture creation of self-employed individuals. And finally, creativity is important. Innovation, is in many cases essential to our economy, but they're not ends in themselves. They're, in as much as we're interested in growing businesses, they can be enablers of that creation and growth, but they're not the be-all, end-all. This is a slide that attempts to communicate this path or this kind of transportation process that a student takes from being aware of entrepreneurship and self-employment as an opportunity to beginning to explore that on the campus or in the classroom, to taking action outside the classroom where they're getting some direct exposure to self-employment, and then ultimately, and maybe that's soon, maybe that's several years from now, they establish a business, create an enterprise, and become self-employed. So there are elements both within the classroom and outside the classroom that are important vehicles to help people get exposure to the idea of self-employment and then to gain the skills and competencies so that at that point, somewhere down the road, they are able to open and operate a business. So as you're working, as you're doing your course development, you're, I'm sure, coming into contact with concepts that you think are germane to your particular discipline. We see, we're listing some of those here, some of those are relating to opportunity recognition, feasibility analyses, some of the other more traditional business topics. Those are, very relevant in your work, and the classroom experience is important. However, the extracurricular outside the classroom experience is equally important and essential to give folks the comfort to do this, that they can actually make. Talk a little bit later about the about that later. If I could ask, just as a reminder, anyone who has the ability to mute their phone, we'd appreciate that. We're getting a little bit of background noise.
Thank you.
If you could do that, that would be appreciated. Okay, the next one, practitioners are really important in how we convey what entrepreneurship is, what the challenges are, and how they can be overcome. The foundation has a strong belief that there are folks in your community very close to your program, many of whom may be unknown to you now, but who can become your strong assets. So entrepreneurs who've gone through your program, perhaps even not as a formal entrepreneurship education experience, but then have become self-employed individuals, are the folks that you should find and bring into the classroom. We encourage them to be co-teachers. We encourage your ability to pair them with students in mentoring relationships, to have them engaged in your advisory boards and committees that inform the development of your programs and your courses, and then clearly having them in the classroom sharing their stories, talking about their businesses. And these don't always have to be the shining examples of great success. They can be the folks who've really taken the path, have hit the challenges, and can share that real experience in the classroom. So that perspective of the real practicing entrepreneur is very important, and the degree to which you can embed that into your course, right, makes it a richer experience for your students. Ultimately, the more that those business owners get engaged in your program, the more likely they will be to provide funding for your activities. So we see this not only as an avenue to improve the educational experience, but also something that helps to make your program more sustainable going forward. And we really believe that is the responsibility of educators to build those relationships and help to connect folks to your program as funders. It's not just the development office that we can rely on, but it's the folks like you who know the passionate individuals in the community who will support self-employment education. As clearly evidenced by the folks sitting in the room that you're with and those across the country and almost 125 in number, entrepreneurship education is relevant beyond the business school. In fact, most businesses are started by students who are outside the business school rather than within it. So we really think, and this is obviously no surprise to any of you involved with the program, that your role being a non-business school professor in your discipline, understanding the opportunity for self-employment in your discipline is critical. And we think that the way in which people can learn self-employment relies very heavily on those who are formally trained in entrepreneurship education. So your project director, a critical resource for you. That person is someone who can provide you insights on the business education that can support your work and your delivery of entrepreneurship concepts. So much of the program exists to build that relationship between you as a fellow and your project director, and to help that project director build a team of individuals on your campus who will champion self-employment education. So there's this interesting little pairing of an entrepreneurship educator and a team of fellows that we think is a very important model. But we ask that you as a fellow really look to your project director for counsel and support, and hopefully in meetings beyond just our coffee hours, begin to kind of engage that individual and learn more about how you can do your work successfully in your department. And also, as I'm sure you've seen, many of you veteran fellows have seen, entrepreneurship can be something that helps you connect across campus to other departments, not just the business school, but there are opportunities across disciplines that can be realized the link of self-employment education. And so the relationships that we're building here are not only between the business school and other departments, but between those other departments built on the foundation of self-employment. This graphic, which is attributable to some work that Dr. Tim Stearns has done at California State University in Fresno, conveys this concept of a pathway. So if you look at that top arrow, there's a process of gaining knowledge and skills and taking action, somewhat as was conveyed on our little road graphic on a couple slides ago. But also there's the sense of moving across educational systems. So students that are entering a secondary school experience should get exposed to self-employment concepts in a way that are to how they're delivered throughout the remaining upstream levels of education. So there's that goal of kind of talking about self-employment in a consistent way in high school, in community college, in four-year school and beyond. There's the opportunity for us to connect those educational systems. So as you're working in your four-year school institution, you may become aware of a community college locally that could be a feeder opportunity for your school, specific to self-employment education. And there are examples of this in the program of four-year schools that are working with two-year schools and developing relationships that assist those community colleges in understanding what entrepreneurship is, but also creating that avenue for students to move between organizations. And then importantly, as you see on the bottom of this slide, there's the ability and the interest in providing incubation opportunity and recognizing that students need to have the opportunity to engage in an incubation experience when it's appropriate for them. It may be before their studies are complete, it may be after they've finished one of these levels, but supporting that ability for them to really take action and grow their business is important. Ultimately, all of this leads to becoming an entrepreneur, creating business enterprises.